Well, what is going down, everybody? Welcome back to another brand new edition. It's been a minute, but we are back for a brand new Am I Still on the Air? That's right, the spin-off show where we break down a very specific topic and get into the nitty-gritty of it all. Am I still on the air? That's where, we like to reach out and have some guests and really dive deep in. We're the main show. We talk about a lot of different news all over the world in television and movies. But on the Am I Still in the Air, we like to take one particular thing and give our devotion to it. So tonight, it's bringing back the spoiler review. And man, I love doing these spoiler reviews where we can actually talk about a film, what we loved, what we hated, and everything in between, especially on summertime, man. Summertime's when we usually do a lot of these things and we really do those deep dives. And it's really awesome because, last summer, the movie theaters were shut down. There wasn't much we could do. So there hasn't been very many episodes of Am I Still on the Air? But now theaters are starting to ramp back up. Restrictions are being lifted and people are getting back out to the theater and seeing movies again. And this movie right here has been the biggest shining light through the pandemic box office over the last couple of weeks. And it's time to talk about The Family. We're going to be breaking down F9, the Fast Saga, Fast and Furious. You know what it is. We're doing the spoiler review of F9. And with me today, you've heard him before here on Am I Still on the Air? It's my boy Frigginz. So welcome to the show again. What up, man?
What up, Don? And what up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in here today. As you may notice, I do sound a little funny. I was trying to get my Dom impersonation with my sinuses, I guess. But it is what it is. But you blew the family whistle, and I revved the engine, and I'm here ready to record whether I sound funny or not.
Doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. So
recording's recording.
Recording is recording, and we making it happen regardless because it's all about family.
That's right.
So and the funniest thing about family right now is the damn memes that are taking over the world. Because if you're on any kind of social media right now, I'm sure you guys are getting some good laughs out of all of the family memes that are going on, man. Over the last week, all of a sudden, there's been a million Fast and Furious memes with Vin Diesel popping into different movies talking about family. And it's just been hilarious. I don't know who started this, but every so often, some weird social media trend happens and these Vin Diesel memes have been glorious.
Oh my gosh, it's like one of those jokes that they keep telling it and at one point you're like, this should stop, but then it keeps going and then it just becomes funnier and it's just, I don't know. Yes. It's been great. It's been a good week.
Dude, it's been so funny, man. We've been putting up a bunch of the memes on our Am I on the Air Instagram. If you check out our stories, you can see a bunch of them. And, my wife even got in on it and she's been sending me a bunch. And I've been, and we, me and Frigginz and Geeky Pat and Peeps, we have a group chat and we've been just sending each other a bunch of them there too. And it's just hilarious, man. I think my one of my favorites right now is the Drake version of Vin Diesel where he's like,
yes.
the Dollar Tree and he's like, no. And then it's all Family Dollar and he's like, yeah.
Dude, that one is totally my favorite as well. I was all about the Star Wars one where all the cars come flying in until the Family Dollar one. Then I'm like, yes, that's it.
Dude, the funniest part of the meme sometime is the fact of them putting the car in it, right?
Yes.
Like the car just shooting into space, or the car kind of like you said in the Star Wars memes, the car's next to Anakin, flying a spaceship, or the on your left from Endgame with the car driving through the portal.
It's not fast in anything without a car in it, man.
Man, it's all about that Charger, man. And once again, spoilers as we break down F9. Speaking of the car, man, one of the big jokes we were laughing about coming out of the movie was the fact that Dom had a Charger waiting for him no matter what country they went to in the movie. He always had a souped up black Charger ready to go, no matter if they were in Cairo or they were in New York or in space. We were ready to go with a
heck yeah, gotta be prepared. And also your clean white t-shirt as well.
Clean white tee, man, and no seatbelts, baby. Because
right.
Fast and Furious, we not safe and furious. We gonna get it done. But yeah, welcome again. again, guys, to the show. We're so happy to be here. I'm happy to talk about this, man. Like, and Frigginz actually came with me to see this movie. We saw it in IMAX,
Yeah,
so it's really
boy.
cool that we get to talk about it after kind of seeing it together. And we have different levels of our enjoyment for this movie. I think what's funny sometimes, especially when we look at ratings, is like Frigginz is way more straightforward on like, I really enjoyed the movie, but it was stupid, so I'm only going to give it 2 stars.
That's right.
Whereas I'm like, I really enjoyed it, yeah, it was stupid, but I'm still going to give it 4 stars, like, so that's where, like, it's fun to do these spoiler reviews and kind of give those different perspectives and kind of where our heads are at. Because I know when we got out of the movie, me, you, and Geeky Pat were kind of like, we all had different levels of enjoyment for it, but I think at the end we all said it was a fun ride. We all enjoyed what we saw. What Nobody came out of the theater being like, that sucked or anything like that. Yeah, we had our laughing moments. Yeah, it was some crazy over the top stuff that we'll talk about. But but overall the enjoyment was there. To what extent we'll get into, but once again, I'm going to stress spoilers. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, this is not the episode to listen to yet. Go watch the movie, come back and join us after the fact so we can get into spoilers. You can listen to the non-spoiler review on Am I on the Air on the regular podcast, so go check that out. But yes, so speaking of spoilers, so again, F9, this is the 9th film in the franchise, 10 if you count Hobbs and Shaw. And so it's been a 20-year journey. Fast and Furious just hit its 20th anniversary, literally the week that this movie dropped. And that's insane in its own way. Because, I mean, who would have thought in 2001 when we were watching Fast and Furious, and it was this little movie that was basically a Point Break ripoff, right?
Yeah,
With
exactly.
the undercover
Like
cop
almost,
go, yeah, undercover cop going in, Brian O'Connor, getting in with the team, and Vin Diesel's group is heisting DVD players, and and it's just this straightforward racing heist movie. And then what's crazy is through the years, Vin Diesel didn't even come back for the sequel, man. Too Fast, Too Furious.
right?
He drops out. He says, nah, I'm too big for this shit. I'm going to go do the pacifier. I'm going to do some other stuff. And, but, Paul Walker returns. Tyrese and Ludacris come into the fold in Too Fast, Too Furious. And then in the third movie, nobody comes back. And we go to Tokyo Drift. We meet a bunch of new characters. That's where we're introduced to Han for the first time. And at the very end of the movie, Vin Diesel makes a cameo to kind of bring it all full circle. And then in the fourth film, the whole original crew comes back. And that's where I was so stoked as a fan, man. Fast and Furious 4, which was just called Fast and Furious. They dropped the on it for the fourth movie.
Right.
So the first movie was the Fast and Furious. The fourth movie was just Fast and Furious, which basically took place after Too Fast, Too Furious. We kind of shifted Tokyo Drift to the side. And we brought everybody back together. At the end of that movie, Vin Diesel gets arrested, and then Fast 5 comes and they break him out of jail, and we just go on this crazy ride to Brazil, and The Rock gets introduced, and we bring Tyrese back in and Ludacris, and we start to do this almost like Avengers thing, right?
Heck
Bringing
yeah.
all these characters back from all the different movies, blending the timelines. Han is in it, and you're like, whoa, how's Han in this? Because didn't he die in Tokyo Drift? And
It was so confusing for a while.
right? Yeah, you're like, what the hell's going on? And then you find out, like, oh, Tokyo Drift comes after the fact. These are prequels, and Gal Gadot, getting her big break in these movies before Wonder Woman, and and then Fast 6, and we get introduced to Owen Shaw, played by Luke Wilson, and then he gets taken out by the family, and then we get Jason Statham coming in as his brother, Deckard Shaw, who of course they do the little after credit stinger, and you see he's the one that killed Han at the end of Tokyo Drift, and you're like, oh my god, that's really cool the way they kind of blended it together. Heck, and kind of almost like retcon that scene and showed that he was getting revenge for taking out his brother. And then Furious 7 happens, with Jason Statham going against them. An awesome movie. And then basically during the filming of that movie was when Paul Walker passed away, so they ended up having to finalize that film without him and used his brothers to kind of fill in. They do a great send off at the end of the movie. He's still alive in this universe. We just kind of, he's retired from the game, right? He's off to the
Watches
side.
the kids.
He's raising the kids. He's with his wife Mia, and they're taking care of the business, And then the fate of the Furious happens. We had the introduction of Charlize Theron as Cypher, and she's this hacker chick who's just all over it. You find out Dom has a son that he had with Elena from Fast Five. Which is crazy. And once again, the timeline's a little fuzzy there because like Fast Five was way before Fast Seven and it's still a baby in Fast Seven. And you're like, how is this a baby and she's pregnant? But
Yes.
that movie was like 5 years ago at least. So like, the timing's a little off on that one. But they kill off Elena in that movie, which is crazy. And you got The Rock and Vin Diesel has to go against the family in this one because Cypher is she's dangling the baby in front of him. And, so that all happens. And then we get the spinoff of Hobbs and Shaw, taking the Rock and Jason Statham's character off to the side. And then now we have Fast 9, F9, the Fast Saga. The start of what they're saying is a new trilogy to wrap this series up because they're saying 10 and 11 will be the final movies in the franchise. That 10 and 11 are going to be filmed back to back. Basically, this is going to be their Infinity War and their Endgame, right? So they're going to go out with these big movies, hopefully bring everyone back for these because I'll tell you, I was really missing The Rock in F9.
Oh,
man.
yeah, me too.
Needed some Hobbs, needed some Shaw. We did get Shaw in the little after credit scene at the end. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But that was cool to see. But definitely looking to see everybody brought back together. Of course, we got Han back. We'll talk about that. And I have a feeling that in 10 and 11, they're going to try really hard to bring Gal Gadot back. I really, really do. I don't think anybody's going to stay dead in this universe.
Oh, no way, man. If they don't bring her back, it's going to be a shame. I mean, they could even bring her back as maybe she's pissed off that they left her for dead. And I don't know. But
I don't know because we do find out in the new movie that she worked for Mr. Nobody, played by Kurt Russell.
True.
She was this, secret agent for him, which was news to us. So it's like, oh, so maybe, they rescued her at the airport at the end of, Fast 6 and maybe she has been alive all this time, but she's been undercover, just like kind of how Han was,
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, who knows, man? I mean, but I would not be surprised if she comes back as well. And yeah, man, we were introduced to Dom's long lost brother, Jacob Toretto, played by John Cena. So that was really cool. And I know a lot of people out there are like, how is a movie about family not going to talk about a brother 9 films in, right? And I felt that way before I saw the movie, but tell me if I'm wrong, Fred, but I feel like the explanation in the film and the way that they set it up made sense why we've never talked about him or why we've never seen him because of the backstory that they told and even using flashbacks, so did you feel like that it came across like it made sense why we haven't heard about Jacob yet?
I mean, this is a movie where you have to turn your brain off and just enjoy all the craziness that you're watching. So if you're getting griped up over the fact that we hadn't heard about his brother before, I mean, that's a bigger issue, I think, when you're walking into this movie is really just turn your brain off. And I do see the argument. Like, it is kind of weird that the whole time of all these years that have passed, they've never mentioned him, but they did a pretty good job of trying to come up with an explanation for it. Whether you buy it or not is a whole nother story, but at least they put the effort in and try to say, look, we're going to explain why it wasn't addressed the whole time. And I thought that was a decent effort on their part.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought they did a really good job with the backstory. The movie starts with a flashback scene, kind of showing, a young teenager, Dominic Toretto, and his brother Jacob, and his dad is a race car driver, and basically his dad ends up dying in a car crash during one of the races. And, and then there's this whole fallout, and they actually did tie back really well with that story of where, Jacob found the driver that basically caused his dad to crash and was going to hit him with the tool,
the wrench,
and then Vin Diesel comes in his character comes in and takes it from Jacob and basically is like, let's walk away, let's not get into this fight. But the guy, of course, is a dick and starts talking shit, and Vin Diesel hits him with the or his Vin Diesel's character, sorry, Dom, he hits him with the tool. And that's the story that they talk about actually in the first Fast and Furious film, about why he went to jail and that he almost killed somebody with I think they said with a tire iron in the first movie, but
I think that's what it was. Yeah.
yeah, but that is the story, and that was kind of cool to see that play out, like in a scene because I instantly was like, "Hey, isn't that the story they told in the first film about why he was in prison and all that stuff?" So it was a cool flashback scene, and a little piece of trivia knowledge here. I don't know if you knew, Fred, but the kid who played the young Vin Diesel in the flashback scenes, that's actually Vin Diesel's son.
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's his son. So he actually did a really good job. He looked like him and he sounded like him. And I was like, and I saw him on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and he said, yeah, that was his son in the movie. So I was like,
that's
oh
cool.
shit, yeah, very very cool.
Well, to be the opposite side of the fence in this conversations, I actually dislike the flashback scenes the most out of the entire movie. Like, even over the ridiculousness of the action, like all these scenes where I felt like, for me, it's like a horror movie. Like if you go see a horror movie, and the concept of the scary thing that's killing everyone is really really scary, and then once they show it to you, it's okay, that's creepy, but it's not as bad as what your mind comes up with. And that was kind of the scene for me, is that I didn't want to see what happened. I didn't want all these weird explanations about, he was going to go to this race, and then he told his son to mess with the thing and whatever. Like I just, the whole scene of young Dom going and beating the crap out of some stupid race car driver that caused his father to die. Like that scene was so much more intense and so much different in my head through all these years, that when I have it shown in front of me, it's almost a disappointment. But again, I know they have to do it in order to explain John Cena's disappearance for all these years. But it's just one of those things. It's like Han Solo in the Kessel Run. Like I didn't need to have that explained for me. Like it's better in my head if I just kind of like imagine it. And that's kind of how I felt with these flashbacks. But for what it was, I do agree that that it was cool that they had his son in there. He did a decent job. I just didn't personally care for those scenes myself.
Interesting. Yeah, I actually really dug them. So that's funny that you didn't like that, because I don't feel like we've really done flashback scenes like that in any of the previous movies. So I kind of dug the backstory and a little bit more of everything kind of tying back, like seeing his dad, seeing, of course, to give a little bit more backstory to it, they play it that he finds out that, Jacob Toretto, the John Cena character, that he cut something in the car to basically make it go on fire, to make him lose the race. And Vin Diesel thought his whole life that his brother tried to kill his dad. And that was kind of why we haven't seen this character for all these movies, because they had a race and he said, if I win the race, you keep on driving and don't ever look back, but if you win, if you win the race, then you come home, you come back to the family, we try to work this out. And of course, Vin Diesel's character wins the race, and we see the young Jacob Toretto driving off, in pain. And
Awesome.
and because that's really what he did. And and then we kind of, we have that flashback scene. So we're told basically from the flashback that his son rigged the car to kill his dad. I knew right away, because in typical Fast and Furious fashion, tell me if I'm wrong, Fred, but I think we all assumed by the end of the movie that, Jacob Toretto would be a good guy, right? That he would become a part of the fold. It is a story about family,
right?
And you got to redeem the family. So of course, things are not what they seemed. He did not try to kill the dad. He did cut the thing, but the dad told him to cut it because he was trying to throw the race to win some money. They had put a bet down, and his dad owed a lot of people money. So he had asked Jacob to help him out, and they didn't tell Dom about it. So, there was a redeeming factor there to kind of, show, of course he didn't kill the dad, right? Exactly. He's not a bad guy. So that was kind of cool there. So, before we get in any deeper, I know we kind of jumped the shark here on it, but let's circle back and let's just give the quick overview. 9 films in, we went and saw it. We saw it in IMAX. When you left the theater, what was your initial thought before we dive in?
Man, that's so hard because there were so many things floating around in my head after watching this one. Like there's this oh my God, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Oh my God, that was such a stupid scene. Oh my God, that was actually really cool. But I smiled throughout, whether I was laughing at it because of its ridiculousness or its stupidness or just that it was fun. I have to give it credit. I had a smile on my face the whole time. I enjoyed the experience. It's definitely by no means my favorite movie ever. And, I think it is completely ridiculous, but I mean, you can't go in thinking you're going to get an Oscar performance out of it. I was talking
9 films in, everybody knows what the fuck they're going to get out of this.
Exactly. There should be no surprises. That's exactly where I was going to go. And that you shouldn't be coming out of there thinking you're going to get something different. I mean, they tell it to you in the trailer. They've told it to you in the previous 8 or 9 movies, if you include Hobbs and Shaw, exactly what you're going to get. And so walking out, and thinking about it, and I think I may have mentioned this when we were talking, but to kind of put an analogy to my experience or my thoughts of this film, it's like what it reminded me of is when I was a kid, and it reminds me of getting my boxes that are full of different toys. I have the G.I. Joes, and I have the dinosaurs, and I have the Ghostbusters and whatever, and I just dump all these piles of toys into the floor, and then I grab them, and I'm just like, wouldn't it be cool if my vehicle they're riding jumps off a ramp, they jump off that, they land on a plane, they fly up to space, then they jump off of that. That's what it felt like, was like a kid just playing with toys, because everything that was happening was so ridiculous. But at the same time, I could see myself doing that when I was 7 years old, playing with the toy or whatever.
No, very much. Yeah, I remember you saying that walking out. Yeah, it's like I was playing with my toys, and that's the movie we made.
That's what it stuck with me. I mean, if you jump off a giant building and some guy swings by and catches you with a vehicle going 80 miles an hour, okay, that's something I would have done with my toys. Or if you drive fast enough that the explosion from the mines won't blow your ass up, that's the kind of logic I would have thought of with my toys. So that's the kind of experience that I was, I guess, prepared for. Is I knew it was going to be ridiculous and stupid and not quote unquote realistic. But that's just what you got to be ready for. I mean, again, if you're thinking this is going to be Oscar stuff, you've been watching the wrong trailers.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, so I've been looking so forward to this movie. Like I said, I've been a massive fan of this series for 20 years. I've seen every one of these in the theater, some multiple times. I love these characters. I know it's getting batshit crazy. I know it. But at this point, how do you not just sit back and laugh and just enjoy the ridiculousness of it? Everybody knows what they're doing at this point. They know it's tongue in cheek. They know what they're doing. I've seen interviews and heard interviews with the director, Justin Lin. He knows where it's gone. Nobody's trying to be take us seriously. This is supposed to just be an over the top superhero-ish action movie, right? These are superheroes. This is the Avengers of non-superhero world, straight up, we have all these different characters from different movies coming together and fighting crime. I've seen a lot of reviews where people just can't disconnect that part, right? They're just oh, it's just too over the top, and the shit's so ridiculous, like it sucks. And it's like, I don't know how you can't have fun with this stuff. Like, yes, it's over the top, but like you said, if you shut your brain off, or you just have that mentality going in of like, hey, I'm gonna watch this over the top action movie. I've seen the trailers. I know he's gonna Tarzan this fucking car across a cliff.
Yes.
Like, whatever, right? Like,
Yep.
like to me, the craziest part about that scene was the fact that he wasn't wearing the seatbelt when the car stopped rolling. I was just like, okay, I'll take the fact that the car just swung across a mountain, but he hit the mountain and then rolled 50 times, and he didn't have the seatbelt on the whole time. Like, why didn't he get ejected from the car? So like, that's the shit to me that's more unrealistic.
That's so funny. That the thing that drove me the most nuts is I'm going into a jungle scenario, and my tactical outfit is a bright white t-shirt. Like, I was good with the jungle rope swing thing too, but the bright white t-shirt in the jungle, come on, man.
Bright white tee with a shotgun while all these guys have fucking machine guns. He's got the fucking shotgun. Hey, can you come a little closer so I can hit you with this thing?
Exactly.
Yeah. So like I said, so overall thought wise, it's just, like I said, I had a great time with it. Yes, it's got some parts. I mean, we'll laugh at some of the crazier parts and that we kind of chuckled aloud at. But like I said, man, I knew what I was getting into, and it gave me what I wanted, which was great action, a great, fun ride. I've been along for the ride this long. I don't see what they could do to make me be like, I don't want any more of these, because I see the hatred. Like, it's funny because these movies are making a lot of damn money. I mean, the last couple Fast and Furious films have hit the $1 billion club. So for as much hate that I see online of people being like, why don't they just stop making these things? I'm like, there's still a lot of people going to see these things. So I'm like, are y'all going out in secret and then talking shit? Like, what's going on over here?
Exactly.
Because I see a lot of people being like, oh, I refuse to see this shit. And then I'm like, oh, it made another fucking $500 million. Like, that's funny.
Well, it reminds me of like the train wreck kind of mentality, or the car crash mentality, where like, someone sees a car crash, you want to look at it and see what's going on.
Where can they go now, right? Like, what's next? Like, we've done, and I think that's why some of the stuff is getting more and more and more ridiculous, because it's like, you always have to one up yourself, right? Like, I mean, in Fast 5 is when all this crazy shit started. So Fast 5, they go to Brazil, they rob that bank, right? They pull the fucking safes down the street, and the safes are wailing through buildings and all this kind of crap, but never tips the cars over, right? Like, but it's doing all that. Then number 6 has the big airport runway scene at the end, and everything's going crazy and all that kind of stuff. And then 7, we're jumping towers in Dubai, with dope. Cars and all this stuff. So in 8, we're battling submarines, and The Rock moved a torpedo with his hand, and like shit like that. Like, you have to keep one up in yourself, right? So we keep joking, like, what are they gonna do next? Go to space? and they heard that shit, right? They were like, oh well, we got to go to space at some point, right? Because it wouldn't be a series, right? We took Jason to space in part 10. Why not do it with Fast and Furious? So it's like they have to keep one upping themselves. It's the same problem that Tom Cruise has with Mission Impossible, right? Like, every movie's got to do a bigger and bigger stunt, because he's got to one up himself. So that's where Fast and Furious is at, is they just have to keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger. And unfortunately, the caveat to that is it's going to get more and more extreme, and in the stupidity aspect as well too, of like, oh my god, there's no fucking way that would happen, but but what do you do? I mean, that it wasn't that always. As a kid growing up, I always felt like action movies were that over the top thing, right? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, Stallone movies, like Van Damme, like that was the point of those action movies, was that it was bigger than life, and I can escape for a couple hours and see some really crazy shit that I would never see in my real life. And that's what Fast and Furious is giving me. So why hate on it? I love it.
I agree with you, and I think that's why I keep going, is to just experience this like ridiculous fun time. I think that a lot of people struggle with the fact that it did start off with trying to be a
Yeah.
kind of more serious, grounded story. As you mentioned, the Point Break. Like that kind of concept of these people stealing VCRs. That's what I was hearing. They started off on VCRs and now they're driving cars in space. Like, who cares if they're spies now? Like,
Right.
it's like, it is what it is. Like,
We
it
can't
just
do 9 movies of these guys racing cars in their 40s. You know what I
exactly.
mean? Like, that doesn't work. You had to up the stakes. I mean, to me, the franchise really started running in Fast Five, and that's when we took this stuff to that next level. Where it was like, okay, we need to do something bigger than street racing, and but I never feel like it lost its value of that. I feel like every movie takes a moment to go back to those roots and show us a little bit of what we had in those first several movies.
Sure, the
um
cars are always going to be an important part of,
yes.
the characters, and that's kind of one of the things that brings them together, right? So that's kind of the glue of the whole of all of their relationships, in a way, is been brought in through vehicles for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's indicative of a lot of people. I mean, I have friends that, like, we became friends because we were in the parking lot seeing each other's cars. We're like, dude, that car's dope. And then we go and start talking that way. And like, that's what they can do. And sure, cars don't always do that for everybody. Like my cousin, he's like, I drive a piece of metal. I don't care what it looks like.
Mhm.
And but for me, I'm like, oh, I want the 67 Mustang fastback, blah blah blah. And like, but that is something that is a true fact of life. Like, there are a lot of car fans, and that brings people together. So that's why I think that kind of works and is needed for these movies, is because the cars and the race scene is the I guess I said it already, is glue of the
Mhm.
group.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that. I mean, like, they still manage a way, even if they're doing like, some crazy ass mission, it's still car based, like them, dropping cars out of the airplane and Fast Seven, and parachuting down, and or the car chases at the end of Fast Eight, on the ice. Like, everything's always cars, at
Yep.
some point. And I love that they tie it back to that, even no matter how ridiculous it gets. But overall, so in Fast Nine, real quickly, storyline wise, we start off with the flashback scene. We see kind of how their dad died, right? And then we cut to current day. Dominic Toretto and Letty are living like on a farm. They're like in the wilderness, and they're raising Dom's son. Tyrese and Ludacris and the chick, I forget her name, they show up, and they basically Ramsey. So they show up, and they let Letty and Dom know that Mr. Nobody's plane has crashed, and that he was carrying some kind of, secret device, which is kind of reminded me of the whole God's Eye thing that they did in like number 6.
Yep.
Like, and that was how we met Ramsey, right? Like, she created the God's Eye, which was like, oh, you could tap into any camera in the world, and da 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 da. Now we have a device that's like, oh, you can control the Earth satellites and weapons. And so it's kind of the same thing. But there's, Mr. Nobody's plane has gone down, he's missing, and this device is missing. What are we gonna do? So I love, right? So it's up to Dom and the team to go in and try to figure it
Oh
out.
yeah.
But Dom's like, hey man, I'm out the game, right? Like I'm done. Like, we're not involved, right? So Ludacris and Tyrese and them are like, okay, we're wheels up at 8 a.m. We're gonna go check it out. And then of course Letty's like, well, I'm out too. Like I can't live this life. Like, I ain't trying to raise nobody else's son. Like, I'm gonna go and join
Yeah,
up with
props to her for sticking to her guns, man. She's like, nah, this is how what I want to do.
yeah, she's like, hey man, I ain't living this farm life. I'm gonna go with the crew, and we're gonna go do this thing. And then so of course, right when they're getting on the plane, there's the charger, and Vin shows up. He's like, all right, let's do this, because he saw a video of Mr. Nobody's plane going down, and real quickly you could see John Cena pop into frame. So Dom now sees, oh, that's my brother. So now I need to figure this shit out. So he shows up, and we're all like, who the hell's watching the kids, right? So
Yeah.
that was the first big question, was who the hell's watching the kids? And so they go to the jungle. and then we get that big jungle fight that we were talking about earlier. There's mines in the ground. They're driving through it all, blowing shit up. We meet John Cena's character. We get the whole big scene you see in the trailer with the Tarzan swing. And basically now we know the bad guy is Jacob Toretto. It's Dom's brother. But we can't find Mr. Nobody. What are we gonna do? And henceforth the mission is on. Then I want to take a moment to pause and talk about Han's resurrection, right? So we go to Tokyo. Basically, Letty and Mia go to Tokyo to look at some clues and see what's going on, because there was this mysterious postcard that came to Dom from Han, but I think it was postmarked like after Han died, like a day or two after he died. So they're like, something's weird with this. So they go, they get in a big fight. They meet this awesome ass chick who helps them fight. And then a sniper from the rooftop, boom, it's Han. He's back, right? How? What has happened, right? So we get this crazy little backstory about how, you know, he went to Tokyo. We get Tokyo Drift. He was sad because Gal Gadot had died. And he has a conversation with Mr. Nobody. And Mr. Nobody tells him, you know, hey, Giselle worked for me as well. Why don't you come work for me? Because if she trusted you, I trust you. Come work with me, and you know, we'll put you on the payroll, basically. So then they, I guess, fake his death with the whole scene with Jason Statham, like he wasn't really in the car. I felt like they were trying to make me think that that was a hologram, because he was there, then he wasn't there, and then Han pops up like across the street with Kurt Russell. And I'm like, what the hell just happened here?
I was
like,
gonna ask if you understood what was going on, because it was just like magic trick. He's out of there. And I was like, how
he says like, oh, I did a magic trick, but you see him in the car, basically dying, and then he's not there anymore. So I almost got this vibe, and I think I saw an article that said that it was a hologram, and that basically like he wasn't really in the car, which is so beyond the far-fetched point of like, because if you go back to Tokyo Drift, that was just a race to begin with.
Yeah.
So then if you piece all the pieces together, we have a race. Then we're supposed to believe that the car that hit him during that race was Jason Statham, knocking him out, setting the car on fire, walking away, only to know that he wasn't really actually in that car because he was working for Mr. Nobody, and it was a magic trick to say that he was dead so that they could get him off grid.
I don't know, man,
Okay.
but you know, it made zero sense to me. I had no idea. I literally like shook my head, like looking to the left, looked to the right, like what just happened when I was watching it, because it didn't make any sense, and they don't do a good job of explaining it. And they went with the painstakingly long explanation of the brother, but they're not gonna like explain how he got out of the car or what. All he had to do was say, oh, that's a good hologram or something like that.
Right. I think they were just expecting us to know, because Mr. Nobody has a lot of tricks, because Han says to him like, that was a cool magic trick, and he goes, we've done better. So I'm just like, which is another thing that makes me feel like Giselle's alive, you know, but but yeah, I mean, I just felt like they just tried to pawn it off like, well, it is what it is. He's back, and he's a spy now for Mr. Nobody, and that's again where it's like the convenience factor, which is very high in comic book films, right? Like the people in the right place at the right time, right? Like it happens all the time, right? Like, oh, Peter Parker goes to the bank to take out $20 out of the ATM, and it happens to get robbed by Dr. Octopus at that exact time, right?
Exactly.
So the coincidence factor is always there. And so now I'm supposed to believe that Giselle, who we met in Fast and Furious 4 and was just like the bad guy's girlfriend at the beginning, was a spy all along for Mr. Nobody. And then he recruited Han, who was also just a street racer, to be a part of his crew, which they also was the same, you know, he's the same one that recruited Dom and his team, but no one told Dom and the team that Han was alive and actually working for the same dude that they've been working for. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, dude, like trying to, you know, bless their hearts for trying to piece it together, but it very convoluted. I was hoping for something a little bit bit different, like a manhole cover or something that he fell into under the car, and just he just was alive and maybe got health back, brought back to health like by Mr. Nobody after the fact or something. I don't know.
And it's not the first time they brought someone back to the dead, because they did that with Letty, right? Like they showed her get capped in, what was it, 4, and then she shows back up in 6. 6. I was thinking of the after credit scene in 5, so I didn't know if that actually counts. But but yeah, and
it was only a picture in 5.
At least with her, they threw in the like she had amnesia, she didn't know, right?
Yes.
But like how pissed would you be? I'm like, man, Han, I thought we were family. Like you could just leave me out
alive
here
this whole fucking time. We mourned you, man. Like we mourned you, we buried you, like
seriously for years.
Yeah, justice for Han.
Yeah,
but,
nonetheless, it is what it is, right?
It is what it is. Cool. But man, that's a hard one, because I've had several people be like, "How did they explain Han being back?" And I'm like, I can't even try to explain that to you.
It makes no sense.
It's not even going to make sense. So let's just go with he's alive, and that's that. Like. It does bum me out. Because I do like the Han character a lot, and I am glad he's back, but it does bum me out that it basically disregards his death, because I thought when they did the whole redo of that scene and made it look like Jason Statham was the one that killed him, I was like, that is the coolest shit ever. Like the fact that they brought in Jason Statham, they connected it to Tokyo Drift, that he's like, you've killed my brother, now I killed one of your family members, eye for an eye. And that was such a badass scene that I got such a kick out of, that they were able to like splice that footage and make it connect. And then now it's just for nothing. Like it doesn't mean shit anymore, and that really does suck in the grand scheme of it all. Like as much as I like to see Han back, it does bum me out that it's really disregarded that scene.
Well, I think it serves two purposes. I think number one is it obviously is the purpose to bring back Han, because he's a fan favorite, and they want like you said, that by the end it's going to be like the whole Avengers, every one of them all together. But the other thing it does is from the get-go, Jason Statham is such a fan favorite that they don't want to make him a bad guy anymore, and they don't want him to just be killed off. So he ends up kind of also having the turn. But at the end of whichever one it was, where him and his brother saved the baby and they bring it back to Dom, and like you get that he gets some credit for doing that, but at the end of the day, like Dom's still like, you still kill my friend, you know what I mean? And so I think the second purpose of bringing back Han is to then quote unquote make sense later on, for Jason to kind of be part of the team, right? Like, so he's more easily accepted now that he didn't actually kill Han.
Yeah, no, I mean that definitely, I mean they had to almost do that, because that at the end of 8, Jason Statham's at the barbecue, and it's like, this guy did kill one of your best friends over here. Exactly. Like, I'm glad he saved the baby and all, but he still killed one of the fam over here. So, it was kind of weird. And then, but that's the thing too, is I don't want to always turn all the bad guys good. You know what I mean? Like, because Jason Statham was such a badass bad guy for this franchise.
Totally.
And as much as I love him being good, and I love like Hobbs and Shaw, I'm like, man, he was such a cool threat to them in Fast 7. And I love that. And it does kind of suck that they've now turned that, and now we did the same thing with John Cena's character. It's like, oh, we got this cool bad guy that's his brother, and he's just as tough and big and bad as Dom, but now he's a good guy, right? We had the happy ending. So, it's just like, can we have a really cool bad guy, please, that just stays a bad guy for once?
I'm waiting for Cypher to be turned good by the end of this thing.
Because now with the breaking news that she's getting the spinoff, I'm like, so are we turning good over here with her too? Or
yes, that means she's going to be good now.
Yeah, because I'm like, we ain't doing this villain movie with Cypher. So
what could they possibly fight other than aliens or dinosaurs that they would have to team up with her?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're gonna have to do maybe Cypher's movie will be some kind of Suicide Squad type of thing, right?
Oh, there you go.
Where they catch her and they're like, you got to do this for us, so we're gonna fucking blow you up. You know, if you don't want to be in prison the rest of your life, you need to do this mission for us. So she'll end up being an anti-hero.
I'll tell you the spinoff I want to see. I want to see the Queenie spinoff with Helen Mirren.
Oh,
That chick, man, when she was still in that necklace and then jumping in that car, like that was my favorite part of the whole movie. That chick was badass. I was like, dude, let me see this movie right here. I really enjoyed
she is
her.
badass, and I did appreciate the callback to Hobbs and Shaw because she was in prison at the end of that movie, and
Yep.
Dom says to her like, "Oh, I thought you were in jail," and she's like, "Oh, please, you know, like they can't keep me in there," you know. So I love that you know she's badass, and you know, but then again, like you know, she says like, "Which one of my sons are you here to see?" I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
what about the daughter, man? She's fucking MI6. Like
All
maybe he
right.
needs her help, you know? Like come on, it's not just about the boys."
That's right.
Um, you know, so yeah, so no, that was cool. I mean, I do like that they're very keen on bringing back certain characters, even if it's just for a couple minutes, like they did with Helen Mirren. I don't the blink and you missed it cameo at the beginning of the film. The cop that Dom talked to in the plane was actually the cop from Fast and Furious 4 that Brian broke his nose. it was
Oh,
that
right.
it was
Yeah.
that cop, and he still had his broken nose in the scene, which I was like, that's a really cool callback because not a lot of people are going to remember that that was the police officer that he worked with in, you know, 4 movies ago.
I admit I didn't catch it until you said, like, as soon as you said it, I was like, oh yeah. Like then
Yeah.
it
I
hit me.
noticed
But
right away the broken nose, and I was like, "Oh yeah," because they broke his nose twice, I think, in that movie,
yeah,
like messing
that's
with
right.
them. So I love that they bring back those little characters. We got to see the return of Bow Wow from Tokyo Drift. He is,
Yep, yep.
you know,
Twinkie.
we haven't seen him. Yeah, Twinkie. We haven't seen him since Tokyo Drift, along with Sean coming back, getting a little bit of a bigger scene. We saw Sean really quick, I think, in Fast 7 or maybe Fast 6. I think it was
It was
Fast
one of
7.
those,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it was 7. We saw him real quick, and I thought like, oh, they got to bring him in as like a big part of the team now, right? And they never did. And I feel like he gets the short end of the stick, man. Like he was a driver, he was all badass in that movie. Like, why couldn't he be a part of the team now, right?
Yeah,
But
I
he
agree.
gets a bigger role in this one. The other dude that was working with them, the guy, the engineer guy, he was in Tokyo Drift as well too. So it was really cool to see them kind of bring that in. Because you know, because we all know that Tokyo Drift, when that movie started filming, it was not intended to be a Fast and Furious film. It was actually a script for a different movie. And
Mm.
then they decided to throw the Fast and Furious name before. I think the movie was just going to be called Tokyo Drift. And then they threw the Fast and Furious name in front of it just to kind of get a couple
Some
extra
extra
bucks at the
dollars.
box office, right?
Yeah.
For people that are
Yep.
like, oh, Fast and Furious. And then they had made the deal with Vin Diesel. I think Vin Diesel had made that deal with Universal that he would get to do another Riddick if he cameoed at the end of the movie and would come back for another Fast and
That's
Furious.
hilarious.
So he did, and that's why he pops up at the end there. So that was cool. So going back to the movies, so we bring Han back. You know, Jacob is trying to steal that device. We find out from the flashback scene with Han that the little girl he's been protecting, her parents created the device, and it's DNA coded, and only the little girl can unlock it. So we get a lot of fights, we get a lot of back and forth. Cypher is back from Fast 8. She's arrested at this point with the bad guys, and they're kind of using her as leverage. And you know, and I'm blazing through this real quick, but you guys all know at this point, you know, so we kind of go through it. There we get all the big fights at the end. Of course, the bad guys in great bad guy fashion turn on Jacob Toretto and are basically like, no, we want all the money and fame for ourselves, so you're out. And which instantly turns Jacob Toretto into a good guy to team back up with his brother
Yep.
and the family and fight the good fight. And they do. And of course, Tyrese and Ludacris, they do go to space. They go up on a rocket. They go out into space in a Fiero. And
With
they're supposed to
scuba outfits.
scuba outfits looking to take out a satellite that they need to that's the only way to stop this thing from happening. And you know, it's one of those end of the world kind of scenarios, but they do save the day. And of course we end the movie back at the barbecue. You know, and one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, and this might sound cheesy, but was really the reuniting of Han and Sean from Tokyo Drift. Like
Yeah,
when
that was
Han walked
cool.
up to the barbecue and the look on Sean's face, of like, oh my god, it's my friend and he's alive, and he just grinned ear to ear, and they hugged, and I was like, man, who would have thought like this reunion from Tokyo Drift from way back in the day was such a cool moment in this movie, the ninth in a franchise. So that was really cool, kind of seeing everybody reunite. And of course, there's an empty table, there's an empty chair at the table. And Mia says, oh, he's on his way. And the blue car pulls up,
Skyline,
man.
yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, it's Brian, dog. And but the credits roll, we don't see anybody, but a real nice nod. You know, we find out earlier in the movie that I guess Brian was watching all the kids when we were joking earlier about who's watching the kids. And I guess Brian was watching the kids because that's how Mia got to be involved in this one. And I'm glad that they explained it as well too, because I remember watching the trailers being like, why would Mia be involved in this movie and not Brian? But it makes sense because they were going after his brother, which is her brother. So
Yep.
it was a family matter, and that's why she got involved into this one. So, you know, Brian stepped this one out to watch the kids so Mia could go find her brother. So, you know, so that was cool. But man, all right. So, I mean, that's the story in a nutshell. Um,
I got two questions for you, and I'm
yes,
just done.
please.
All right. So first, I want to know. You kind of answered this one, so I'll start with this first. What was your favorite moment or favorite scene throughout in this movie? So like you kind of already touched on like the reuniting of Sean and Han kind of stood
Yeah.
out to you, but did you have another scene that was just really cool for you?
I mean, the magnet stuff, driving through with the magnets, I thought that was super cool as hell. You know, I mean, sometimes, you know, again, you're just like, why did it only pull those things and not everything? Sometimes, you know, and especially when they turned it on and got John Cena's car and just like
Oh
ripped
yeah.
his car through the wall and kind of went right into the truck. And that's how they were able to capture him.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. But no, I love the magnet scene driving through the streets. That was awesome. I thought the jungle stuff was really cool. That whole action scene in the beginning I thought was really tight, even though it was a little crazy, especially the drawbridge. Driving over the drawbridge, it
Oh
snaps,
God.
it's falling, and they somehow still were able to drive fast enough to get up the bridge and onto the mountain, even though that's not the way a drawbridge would work if it snapped. But you know, hey, AA for effort. But you know, but yeah, I mean, honestly, all the action scenes I thought were badass. I thought they were really badass in this movie. There was a lot of great action, a lot of great hand-to-hand, the fight with Dom and Jacob. I loved all the action stuff, you know, and there was a lot of good humor too, man. I mean, I think that's what I like about these movies a lot is the balance of humor and action. I love what they did with Tyrese in this movie, where he kind of in the beginning was just I feel like he was that guy for the audience to be like, hey, do you ever realize like why are we not dead? Like why are we
Yeah.
still alive after all of these missions, all this crazy shit we do? We don't even have a scratch on us, you know, like how does that happen? And I love that this almost like internal running joke was going on about them almost being immortals and all this stuff. And I was like, that's hilarious because you know a lot of the audience is thinking that and wondering like how the hell, because there's that scene in the jungle, right, where he gets stuck, the truck gets stuck between two rocks and he gets out to dodge the mine, and then the
Mm-hmm.
car looks like it just falls right on him, and we're
Mm-hmm.
like, what the fuck, did they just kill him off like right now in the beginning of the movie? And then he just pops up like, whoo, man, that was close. And we're like, dude, we just saw this truck fall on his head. Like, how the hell is he walking away from this thing? You know,
Exactly.
even Ludacris is like, I thought you were dead. Like, you know, like straight up, you know. And I love that that was the running joke. The entire movie was like, I told you, like we're invincible. Like, you know, like we should be dead. So that was a really cool tongue in cheek kind of thing to do for the audience, kind of wink, wink. I thought that was kind of a nice kind of almost break the fourth wall kind of moment. So those were kind of the standouts to me, kind of overall. Like I really enjoyed. Like, what about you?
For me, definitely my favorite scene I mentioned already was with Queenie. Dude, that scene was just so dope. I really
Cool,
liked
that's cool.
her attitude and her like just her swagger, you know. I also really liked the new character Elle, with her doing like all her awesome ninja kick
Yes,
buddy
she was
stuff.
badass.
Probably one of my favorite characters in the franchise is Ramsey, and I was disappointed that they made her where like she doesn't know how to drive,
Yeah.
and I was just like, oh, come on, let her drive a car, cool car. But I
I
liked,
kind of got it though because she's
yeah,
British and she's like, I don't really, like she's like, I never really drove a car. Like she is the tech nerd, like, there's a lot of people just ride the bus and stuff over there, and like not
sure,
a lot of people
sure.
drive. So I thought that was a funny twist to be like, what I don't like about scenes like that though is the over the top, like, oh, I got the windshield wipers on and like stuff like
Yeah,
that,
and
like
swerving all the way to the left and all the way
yeah,
to the right, smashing
full
car. That
steal, yeah.
that bothered me a little bit. But yeah, I mean, my two favorite scenes were definitely with Helen Mirren and then also with Elle when she was kicking butt. I did also enjoy specifically the chase with Dawn and Jacob, and where Dom like jumps and like catches him on the wire as he's like swinging through the city
Oh
like
yeah, that was
Spider-Man.
awesome.
I
Yeah.
thought that was a pretty cool scene. So that was pretty fun for me as well. But it also kind of was leading into my next question for you was going to be, what was the most like absurd thing for you? Like what bothered you the
This is what I was
most?
gonna ask you. So yeah, so we're on the same page, right? The love moments, and then what? Let's talk some absurdity because we joked about it. Like this movie's got a lot of it that you just have to kind of okay, like Um, my favorite, and this is when I chuckled out loud during the movie. Was there's a moment where so they like I said earlier in the movie they had captured Jacob Toretto and Mr. Nobody had given them like a hideout base like where the Ninja Turtles were in the sewer. Like
That's
they
right.
have they have the Ninja Turtle base and they have Jacob Toretto captured, and of course the bad guys find out where they're at. And Jacob Toretto was like, hey, I've worked with Mr. Nobody before too, I know all about this base, I told them where you'd be. So they're escaping. So Dom goes on this big fight and he's fighting off 50 damn guards
Yeah,
all
by
by
himself.
himself and everything because he's the Hulk.
Yeah.
And then there's a moment in this scene where he's on like a platform and there's chains dangling and he grabs the chains one in each hand and goes and literally pulls the ceiling down and makes it collapse, right? So then it falls on top of all the bad guys including him. They fall like 50 feet and he lands in the water below. Him pulling the ceiling down to me was the most absurd fucking thing in this movie. Like that's when I just had to be like, ha! Like watching this in the theater because could not believe that he just pulled the ceiling down. And there was a similar feeling to this scene. I think it was in Fast 7
I think it's 7. The
when
ground stomp.
yes, the ground
Yes.
stomp when he's fighting Jason Statham and he stomps in the parking garage and the fucking garage crumbles below him. I'm like, dude, he I don't give a fuck how big he is. He is not that goddamn strong. Like we are talking about cement that he is literally pulling. Like it's just I felt like I felt like he needed to one up the Rock for trying to pull the helicopter down in Hobbs and Shaw. He's like the Rock did that with one hand. I'm gonna take two and I'm gonna rip this fucking ceiling down.
Yes.
So to me, that was the most absurd thing. I mentioned before about the drawbridge. I thought that was just so ridiculous. The bridge is literally like a wood ladder bridge that's strung across a mountain valley and it snaps with a Jeep on it. And somehow, as it's falling, they drive the Jeep up it and onto the mountain, which is just that is so goddamn absurd. Of course, the space stuff, like I almost just had to just, okay, like with the Fiero, like being in space, how the fuck would they get back through the atmosphere? Like how is that thing going to withstand like the sun and how the heat of coming back through the atmosphere on the way back down in the scuba gear? Like that wouldn't work. Like that was just so absurd. And they didn't even show us how they got back in. I actually thought they were going to kill those two off in that scene. They made it seem like if they smashed the satellite, they were dead. And they somehow smashed the satellite, still made it back just fine. So it kind of, I don't understand why they made such a big deal about that scene because like nothing really was an outcome of it. Like to be like, oh man, what a sacrifice.
Right.
Like they rammed the satellite and everything was all good still. So that was a little something, something. Even getting that car into space. I mean, we saw the earlier scene in the movie where they were like, "Oh, we'd never had a successful test run of this car with the rocket on it. It always blows up after the fact."
Yeah.
But somehow that was that was the one that worked when they took it to space.
I
Um,
appreciated the Fiero reference. Back in the day when the first Fast and Furious came out, me and all my buddies always talked about like upgrading our cars. And I had this one dude at work who always wanted to get a Fiero and put a Ferrari mod over it because that was like a thing people did. So that it looked like they had a Ferrari, but it was just a Fiero.
that's funny.
Yeah.
That is so funny. Yeah, so I mean, like we talked about the Tarzan swing, the no seatbelts, like stuff like that is just so goddamn over the top. But those were probably the biggest absurd moments to me. I mean, definitely nothing will top him pulling down the ceiling with his bare hands in a underground sewer cement hideout. But that really made me laugh out loud. But what were the standout absurd moments for you, my friend?
Well, you definitely you called out a lot of them. I have to say, like every time somebody was flying through the air and they caught him with a car, like I literally busted out laughing. I'm like, it doesn't work that way, but you know what?
Yeah.
It looks cool, whatever.
Yeah.
Honestly though,
Yeah, like Letty getting knocked off the motorcycle and
yeah,
then
she was
catches her on his hood.
flying. Yep. And the same thing happens to uh Jacob as well. Like later on, he flies off the big truck and then Dom catches him or something.
Oh yes, that one was crazy.
Right?
Yeah, because he jumped like that one was like a ping pong for a moment too. Like
Yes.
he jumps out the one truck, then hits the car, and then the car spins and he jumps out, gets knocked into the other car.
Yes. Yes. It's totally ridiculous. But for me, the one that like broke me, where I was just like, no, this does not happen. It's not even involving the vehicles. It was in the jungle scene when Tyrese is in the like kind of pit by himself and all the soldiers are around him and they all have like AK-47s. There's like 10 of them that have the height advantage and they're shooting down at him and he doesn't get one scratch. And I know that was like his joke, but when you have height, it's like he was in the kill box. I mean, watch The Rock. Even as ridiculous as The Rock movie is, all the Navy SEALs die because the bad guys had the height advantage.
Yeah.
So like that one broke me. I was just like, no, and that was right in the beginning. The other ones I could deal with, but that's the one that broke me.
Yeah. How did the mine not, like Michelle Rodriguez is riding a motorcycle through a minefield and somehow never hits a mine, like all these cars, like I don't know, man. Like, yeah, the whole Tyrese thing, like they're getting shot at like crazy, and just every bullet misses. And he actually, you're wrong though, because in that scene, he does like his bulletproof vest has a bunch of holes in it. Like he got hit a bunch of times, but yes, you're right. I mean, he still would have got several in the head. Yeah, but like they only hit where the Kevlar was at.
Exactly.
But come on, man, nothing tops him pulling the ceiling down.
Oh no, that is definitely the top one though, for sure. Like
I think me and you both laughed like our asses off, like when that shit that we were like, oh my god, like like I said, like it's easy for me to shut my brain off and just enjoy, but that one was definitely one where I was like, oh come on guys, like that's where it's like y'all really trying to make me not believe on this one, right?
Yep, I can handle the space stuff, but
exactly.
With homie pulling stuff down with his chains and pulling concrete, no.
Yeah, just like I said, I always hated that fucking parking lot stomp in Fast 7, and I'm just like, they did it again, man. He's damn Hulk. And that's what's always funny to me too, with like the fight scenes, like they did it with when Vin fought The Rock in Fast 5, and then they did it again in this one when he fought Cena, when they had that fight scene and they're running through walls and like banging their heads through walls, and the wood is breaking and the concrete's breaking, and and everyone just keeps fighting, right? Like no one ever gets knocked the fuck out or like anything, right? Like his head went straight through a ceiling and somehow like they're just still punching away.
Yep.
Like no problem. I mean, these are some tough SOBs, right?
Hell yeah.
That's all I gotta say.
It's that adrenaline and all those muscles.
I guess. So at the end of this movie, like I said, we kind of circle back and we have a really cool kind of almost like repeat of the original film where Vin Diesel tells his brother Jacob, he gives him the keys to the car and he says, hey, everybody's going to be coming for you right now. And one time somebody gave me a 10-second head start, so I'm going to pay you the same favor. So it was a nice reversal there of what, Brian did for him in the first movie. Now Vin doing it for Jacob at the end of this movie. So I love that callback. I thought that was a really, really cool kind of thing to give him that moment to kind of drive off, and kind of get a chance to get away. Because of course everybody's going to be coming for his ass. Sorry, I'm gonna circle back again to another ridiculous moment that just back in my head.
I'm excited.
So speaking of your Queensy moment, right? So right after, so number one, how the fuck did she know where to take him? Like, number one, right? Like he just popped up like out of nowhere and got in the car with her, and then she took him to that mansion, right? Where Jacob was at. Like she didn't know he was going to be there or what was going on.
She said that she knew that he had come into town, he was paying well, so maybe they were like, you did a good job, come down to the party, we're having a good time.
No, maybe. But it was just very, once again, coincidental.
Oh, for sure.
She knew exactly where to go and like was able to take him there and get him there very quickly.
Well, it was also coincidental that he happened to know Cardi B and her squad.
Well, so that's what I was getting to. Damn it, you took my steam.
Oh, my bad.
That was the scene that I wanted to talk about. So yes, so he goes in and he gets into the gunfight with John Cena, and they pull the guns on each other. And then the little Richie dude that was funding all the bad guy stuff, he comes in and says, oh, you can't do that here, so you're going to be arrested, right? Here's Interpol, they're going to take you away. And it turns out to be Cardi B with horrible acting. She was so, and what's crazy is that she was in the movie Hustlers, and I don't know if you ever saw Hustlers.
Yeah,
but,
I did.
I didn't think she was too bad in that.
No, she's good.
She was fucking horrible in that scene in Fast and Furious. It was bad. So it was all girls dressed up as Interpol, and they did this favor for Dom, right? So I love that Dom just has connections in every country and everywhere he goes, right? Like not only does he have a charger waiting for him, but he's got contacts all around the world that always owe something to him for something,
right?
And so they're like, yeah, here we go, we did this favor for you. So again, how the fuck would he had ever known that's how that would have played out, that Interpol would have been called, that scene would play out that way, to where Cardi B would be ready with her people dressed as cops to arrest him and then let him go. I don't know, man. That was just another scene that I remember I was talking with my brother-in-law over the weekend about that scene, and we were just kind of laughing about, like, once again, the coincidental factor of just like, how would you know that was going to play out that way to have that all set up and ready to go?
I feel like it would have made more sense if it was I don't remember the character's name, but Isa Gonzalez from Hobbs and Shaw. Remember,
that would have been badass.
She had like the girl squad, right?
Yeah,
with all the guns and everything.
So much more sense.
Because then that way they could have tied it in like, oh, your buddy Hobbs, send us over here or something like that. Kind of loop it in a little bit, make it make sense.
I'm surprised. I don't know about you, but I'm surprised. I don't think Hobbs got any mention in this movie.
No.
I honestly thought, like, because we knew he wasn't in it, but I honestly thought you would get that name drop at some point. Like, why don't we call Hobbs? Oh, he's off on mission somewhere, right? Like, like just to have that moment of like, why is he not here? Right? He's been in the last 3 movies. Why would we not have him for this crazy ass mission? Like, so that to me was a little weird that they wouldn't have even tried to say, oh, maybe he was busy doing something else,
Yeah. And I guess we're supposed to assume that, but you're right. Typically they like to like over explain stuff and drop a comment. Maybe it's in like the director's cut. There's a little
right. Yeah. I don't know, man. Maybe it just shows that Vin Diesel feud is still a little there that he was like, I don't want to even mention his goddamn name in this
Yeah.
movie. Like, okay, because I'm like, they love to name drop in these movies. How are you not going to mention Hobbs? Come on.
Seriously.
If
They
you
could have
needed
been
anybody's help in these films, he would be the first call I would make. So I don't know why.
exactly. I was gonna say the same. And like even if they'd be like, well, I heard he's fighting some guy with a really cool motorcycle.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. He's tangled up over in London doing something.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that would have been cool. So like I said, we talked about the barbecue, we talked about the ending of the film. There is a mid-credit scene where we see a guy in a hoodie doing a punching bag, and the hoodie comes off, and it's Jason Statham. That's right, Deckard Shaw. He's punching this punching bag. He unzips the bag, and there's a dude inside of it, all beat up,
That was awesome.
which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
So I did not notice if it was a character or anybody we knew. I don't know who he was beating up. I feel like it maybe is just some generic bad guy.
I think so.
But I didn't feel like it was overly obvious who the guy was that he was punching. But he asked the guy for, I think, a flash drive or for something. And then there's a knock on the door. He zips the bag back up. And when he opens the door, it's Han. And it's like, oh, we get that face to face, right? Like we're going to have that justice for Han moment. But that's where it fades to black. And now we're going to have to wait for Fast 10 to see what happens after that fact. But very cool moment, man, to kind of see those two come head to head because, hey, regardless of everything, Jason Statham did try to kill him, unless the way they retcon that is again that they try to make it that Jason Statham was in on the whole thing of how they faked his death and he's there to thank him for helping with the mission or some shit, right? So
even if that's the case,
what it'll be.
Even if that's the case, he went into that police station and killed a shitload of police officers. So he's still a murderer.
He's still a murderer regardless. He blew up a whole hospital at the beginning of that movie. So.
Yes, exactly.
But a cool mid-credit scene. I was kind of hoping that the person at the door would have been The Rock. It was like, give me my Hobbs so we could get a little moment after the fact. And I thought he would come in and start punching on the bag. But unfortunately, it was not that. But I did like the fact of bringing Han in and kind of doing that. So I did appreciate the mid-credit scene. I like that they do those with these films now as well too. So we're setting it up. So that's F9, everybody. The highs, the lows, the ridiculousness of it all. But overall, we had fun. Even though, what was your final score?
So my final ranking, and I just, even though I had a good time with it, I could not give a higher ranking than 2.5. I mean,
so bad.
It's a bad movie, but like I still had fun with it. But it's a bad movie, so 2.5's right down the middle. I think in my opinion,
rank it based on your enjoyment of the film, not based on what kind of movie it is. Come on,
that's why I didn't get just a 2. You know,
thanks for your so generous extra half a star. God, 2.5.
Yeah, still good. I had a fun with it, but it didn't quite hit the like, great mark, or definitely not like excellent or perfect. So I go with the 1 sucks, 2's okay, and it was just almost to good, but I just couldn't quite give it the full 3.
Well, I would give it 4 out of 5 because I base my shit on my enjoyment of the movie, regardless how cheesy or over the top it is. Yes, I understand that it's not going to win any Academy Awards. It's not that type of film. I can still give it 4 stars. I had a great time with it. I thought it was awesome. So there's the scores. I know we were kind of, and I still haven't done my full ranking.
Come on, you're slacking on
I
us,
know,
buddy.
I know, but
I got mine ready to roll.
I knew you would. So I'll roll to you first. I'll try to slap mine in my mind real quick, but go ahead and rank out your. You gonna do 9 or are you doing all 10 with the?
I'll throw in Hobbs and Shaw. I'll do all 10.
All right, go for it.
So for me, coming in at the very dead last would be Too Fast, Too Furious. I think I saw that movie the first time it came out, and I've never watched it again.
Oh, come on, cuz.
I don't like that one.
We're hungry.
Number 9 fits right in with its name. I throw in Fast 9. So F9 hits number 9. Number 8, I got Fast and Furious, which is the 4th one. At 7, I have the Fate and the Furious. So that's the 8th one. At 6, I have Furious 7. At 5, I have Tokyo Drift.
Wow.
At 4, I have Hobbs and Shaw. At 3, I have the first one. At 2, I have 6, and 1, I have 5. Wow, that's confusing. Like all the numbers. So
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
go through again.
exactly.
Number 1 is Fast 5. Number 2, Fast and Furious 6. Number 3, The Fast and the Furious. Number 4, Hobbs and Shaw. Number 5 is Tokyo Drift. Number 6, Furious 7. Number 7, Fate of the Furious. Number 8, Fast and Furious. Number 9, F9, and number 10, Too Fast, Too Furious. That made more sense. That was less numbers.
A lot of numbers. A lot of numbers.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. I mean, I think I agree with your top kind of portion, but your bottom half is all. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like I said, I kind of a lot of these it's almost like ranking the Marvel films sometimes to me, because it's like they're so close sometimes to each other that it's like it's hard for me to separate, because then like one day I could say one's better than another and then flip it the next day. So that's why I think it's been hard for me to kind of put this one to paper. I would probably let me because like I said, I'm doing this off the top of my head. I did not write this out. So if I did off the top of my head, yeah, it's going to be easier to go best to worst, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I would agree with you. Fast 5 all the way. Fast
Heck
5
yeah.
is the best movie of the franchise. I love that movie. Seen it a million times. It's so damn good. Then I would go 6. I think I would go 5, 6, 7 to be honest for 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
I love Fast 5, 6, and 7 for sure. I think then I would go. five, 6, 7, and then probably 4. This is where it gets hard, because I would probably go 5, 6, 7, then possibly 4, if not the original movie. So those two are kind of side by side for me. And then it would be, oh man, because then now I'm leaving out Hobbs and Shaw. Fuck.
It's hard.
I know it is hard. I think okay, so I would go 5, 6, 7, Hobbs and Shaw, 4, 1, this one, F9, Too Fast, Too Furious, and then Tokyo Drift last.
Gotcha.
So I think that's the way I would go with it, off the top of my head. So because definitely Tokyo Drift and Too Fast, Too Furious are at the bottom for me. I don't hate them by any means. Once again, I always feel like I have to put that caveat out, like the Marvel movies, right? Like when I'm like, oh, Captain America, the First Avengers at the bottom of my list, but that doesn't mean I hate that movie. It's just the way the cookie crumbles, right?
Right.
So I have Too Fast, Too Furious and Tokyo Drift at the end. I do really like those movies. I like all these movies, but they're my least favorite of the bunch if I had to rank them out. And then the Fate of the Furious, I did not really care for that one tremendously much. So that's why that one would be towards the bottom there as well. And then it would be F9, and then kind of work into that big bunch of the 5, 6, 7, Hobbs and Shaw, and then 4 and 1. So yeah, man, that's the franchise right there. So like I said, man, supposedly from what Vin Diesel says, there's only 2 movies left. They're filming 10 and 11 back to back. I think they're going to start filming later this year, by the end of the year. They've been developing them for a while, because of course this movie here, F9, was supposed to be released a year ago and then got pushed back an entire year because of the pandemic. So it's glad that it's finally out. That was the movie that I was so pissed about last year, that I think it was my most anticipated movie, or my second most anticipated movie of the year last year. And then when the pandemic started, all these movies were shifting back like a month or 2 months, and Fast and Furious F9 was the first movie to say we're going to jump a whole year and go to May of next year. And I remember being like, what the hell? Why would you push this thing a whole damn year? And then look where we're at, man. It really took a year to get this damn thing up and running again. So good on them. I mean, they definitely made a wise decision. Like I said, box office wise, this movie has made over $500 million already in just a couple weeks. It is the biggest debut for any film in this pandemic era. The movie made 70 million here in the US its opening weekend, which was the most any movie's made since The Rise of Skywalker in 2019. And then and it made over 300 million worldwide already. And then, like I said, just crossed the $500 million mark. It just crossed the $100 million mark here in the US. It is the biggest numbers we've seen in the box office in a year and a half. So that is fantastic. It's good to see people back into the movies. It was really packed when we went and saw it. It's good to see people getting back out there and trying to get back to some normalcy. So, like I said, we're supposed to get some more spin-offs, another Hobbs and Shaw, maybe the Cypher movie. Who knows what else we'll get? Jordana Brewster and Michelle Rodriguez have been talking about a female spinoff, of course, of all those female characters. Why not? That seems to be a direction they want to go with a lot of this stuff lately. So I could definitely see that happening at some point. Cool. I feel like the Tyrese Ludacris one is at some point going to happen. Right. Maybe that'll be exclusive to Peacock. But we'll see how that one plays out. It could be fun, man. It could be a fun buddy cop kind of movie.
Yeah, why not?
And then, of course, like I said, 10 and 11, Vin Diesel says this will wrap up the franchise. They will continue with some spin-off stuff, but 10 and 11 will be the wrap up of the main franchise after all these years. So we'll see if they actually stick to that. It's like the director of The Purge saying the new one was the last one. And before the weekend was even over, they're like, we have a good idea for another one. I'm like, yeah, of course you do. Because money speaks volumes.
If it keeps making money, you're going to keep making them.
Yep. But we ready, man. We ready for 10 and 11. We'll see how ridiculous it gets. Of course, we'll probably have John Cena back. Hopefully we'll have Hobbs and Shaw back. Maybe we'll see Gal Gadot back. You never know what's going to happen when the family gets together. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Is there anything else you want to wrap up with F9 and the whole Fast Saga?
No, I think we covered it all. It was a fun ride, and I'm looking forward to see the car wreck that's going to be number 10.
Yes, man. I'm telling you, man. Get ready for the end game when Thanos pops up.
Yeah. I want some dinosaurs. I want robots. Whatever you got.
Dude, if Optimus Prime don't pop up at the end of 11, dude, they're missing a big opportunity. Yeah, because I want that Transformers crossover. That's what I'm waiting for. So. But hell yeah, man. Well, thank you for joining me on this spoiler review. It's good to be back talking spoilers, talking about everything we can, because I don't get to talk about the fun stuff on the main show. So, I try to keep it all spoiler free for y'all. So it's nice to come here and actually chat it up with somebody and break it all down for y'all. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Frigginz, tell the people where they can find you.
Well, I am on Twitter and Instagram at one simple location. It's at Frigginz. That's Frigginz, Frigginz with a Z. And that's pretty much it. I take it back. We do a streaming thing on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mead and Friends, where a bunch of us get together and play some D&D, and we do that every other Saturday. So we should be playing this coming Saturday, which would be the 10th. If you want to tune in and check us out playing D&D, we do that as well.
All right. Awesome. Check that out. Of course, Am I on the Air? Make sure you follow on Twitter at Am I on the Air. All the social media platforms, basically just search Am I on the Air and you can find us all across the interwebs. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podchaser, Google Podcasts. We're all over the interwebs. Just subscribe wherever you see fit, and make sure you follow along on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, all that good stuff at simply Am I on the Air. Hey, it's been a big week for the podcast. We have this episode here. We got the new episode of Am I on the Air that just dropped a couple days ago. Check that out. It's called the Forever War, and we break down 4 big movies talking about the Tomorrow War, the Forever Purge, Boss Baby 2, and Fear Street 1994, which is now streaming on Netflix. So 4 big movie reviews. There's also another brand new episode of Am I on the Air Quick Bites this week as well, too, breaking down the big deal that just happened between Universal and Peacock, where they're going to be streaming a lot of Universal films like Fast and Furious on Peacock right after the theatrical window. So check that out. 3 big episodes from the Am I on the Air family this week. So go to your favorite platform, look it up, and subscribe and follow along. So my name is DONMEGA. That's Frigginz. Thank you for listening here tonight for this F9 spoiler review. And until next time, y'all, peace.